Today, we're talking about scholarship negotiation. And if you're one of the many applicants who have received offers, maybe you're thrilled, maybe you're a little confused, maybe you're just not sure what to do. I have these great offers, but I'm trying to figure out what school to choose. And I've heard about this thing called scholarship negotiation. What exactly does that mean? Who are you negotiating with? What are you negotiating with? Will it really be successful? Is this just an old wives' tale? Today, we are going to talk about all of it. For those of you who are new, my name is Sydney Montgomery, and I am the founder and executive director of Barrier Breakers, the nonprofit that works to increase access to and success in higher education for first-gen and minority students. And I am so excited because joining me today on this scholarship negotiation question to talk about some of the common questions students ask and their common confusion points when talking about scholarship negotiation is Alice Foley, our director of pre-law programming. Alice, welcome. We are so happy to have you.
I am so glad to be back, and I am thrilled to be back on video with you. It's been entirely too long. So you mentioned it a little bit a minute ago, but I'd love for you to just start us off. One of the very, very most common questions that I get is, what is scholarship negotiation? What is this thing that we are doing?
That's a really good question. And it can be really weird, the concept of scholarship negotiation, because most people up to this point have only dealt with admissions when it comes to college admissions. And in college admissions, you don't really negotiate your scholarship in the same way. In college admissions, you might have financial aid appeal letters, which means that you are explaining to the school why your finances would qualify you perhaps for some more money. However, there's two big distinctions between college financial aid and law school financial aid. The biggest being that most law school financial aid is really just merit aid. Most schools do not give need-based aid. Now, there are some exceptions to that, and where there are some exceptions, those schools typically don't actually engage in scholarship negotiation as much. But for most law schools, most of the money that they're giving is merit money, which means that a school has decided that based on maybe your identity, what you've overcome, your GPA, your LSAT score, you are such a desirable candidate that they want to give you X amount of dollars to come to the school. It's sort of like enticing. They're trying to get you to say yes. And because of that different dynamic that we have, if you have a school that has given you one set of money and another school that's given you a different set of money, and we'll talk about what comparable schools are, we'll talk about what information you present, but then you have the opportunity to be like, hey, I really want to come to your school, but X school has given me this, and that's a really good offer for me, but I still really want to come to your school, so I wanted to see if there's anything that you can do in terms of scholarship negotiation. Now, this might seem awkward or weird or even rude for some of us that are raised in the way that like you just say thank you, but it's actually common practice, so much so, and we'll go into this, that there are specific forms and there are mechanisms by which schools actually ask you to engage in scholarship negotiation because it is a standard practice in law school admissions. It's not rude, it's not weird, it's not something that you need to have a lot of anxiety over, but it is a part of the process. And I like to say, as future lawyers, this is really something that you want to embrace in a respectful and kind way because it's a way to advocate for yourself to get more money.
That is excellent and so thorough. I know I was one of those people that was raised where it was like, thank you, this is great. I love this thing that you have offered. We don't ask for more. We don't ask why. We just take it and say thank you. So it was definitely new for me when I started working in law schools to have students talking to me about, well, I've got this offer too, and I'd love to talk about we can maybe increase mine for here because I love this school and I really want to come here. But with that anxiety comes this sort of fright on, particularly for students that don't have a great relationship with an admissions officer to start out with. They're really concerned about how we start this conversation. Do I just reach out and say, hey, I'd like more money? Do I call them up? Do I drop by the office with no warning? Don't do that.
Probably not that.
No. So do you have any advice for our students on how to start this conversation, particularly if they're feeling a little angsty, a little awkward about it?
Absolutely. So it's not going to come as a surprise that my answer is pretty similarly along the lines of how do I reach out and form relationships with schools. You participate in the vehicles and the mechanisms by which the law school has provided for you to do such a thing. This is almost the same answer. There are so many different ways that schools have made it for you to participate in scholarship negotiation. Now, There are some schools that don't have a specific form, and I'm going to throw up on my screen a couple of examples too of what those forms might look like in a bit. But let's say you've received a good number of your offers. Now, this is a good point about when. You don't receive the first offer and immediately say, I want to negotiate my scholarship. One, if you don't have any other offers, that's real silly. And two, that's not really in good spirit, right? We're not negotiating simply because I'm supposed to negotiate my scholarship. You actually want to be genuine. You actually want to say, well, hey, I really do like this school, but maybe it's financially out of reach for me still. And so I'm going to negotiate or see if I can get more scholarship money. If a school is giving you, let's say 90% in grants, and you don't really need any more money, and you also don't have a better offer from another school, which is really important, then you don't need to negotiate the scholarship. It is not an entitled, like, okay, I got the offer, time to negotiate. But it is really like, what do you need to actually go to that school and feel financially comfortable? That's the lens and the mindset with which we're doing it. Again, we're still in the relationship building process. This is not an adversarial or even transactional process. It is still about you as a student, and it's still about the school and the relationship and the fit. And here, where previously we may have been talking about different things when we talk about fit, here we're really talking about financial fit. Does this school make financial sense? Does this offer allow me to go to law school in a way that is not going to cause undue stress or burden on my finances? And so when you have received, maybe half of your offers, a solid amount of your offers, and you can look to see what the financial aid or scholarship package is really at all of the different offers and schools, then you can start to say, you know what, I think I do want to try to talk to this particular school about getting the same offer maybe as this other particular school, because that would make going to this particular school significantly more financially feasible. And like I said, there's a few different ways to do that. If the school does not have a form, then you can send an email. Now, hopefully you were listening the entire year when we were talking about forming relations with admissions, because here's where it can come in handy. When you have this position or this situation in which you want to negotiate, you can reach out to the admissions officer that you've been speaking to the whole time because you've been forming such a strong relationship, and they will hopefully point you in the right direction. Now, if you are not listening and you do not have any relationships with admissions, that is first off not great, but it can be overcome. You can start to form the relationship right now. There's no time like the present. And just start to explain your situation. They admitted you, they like you, they want you to come to the school. So at this point, we're all team, how do we get you to the school? It's not an adversarial relationship. They are on your team. They want you to be able to commit to that school. That's why they spent the time admitting you and not rejecting you like they did some other people. They said yes to you. And so they want to find a way to make that yes mean something. And that's the lens that we're going in with this. It's relationship building. It's about fit. It's about how can I make this yes to them like they have made a yes to me. And so you want to start out with, hey, I really would love to talk to someone about my scholarship package. I'm so grateful. Say thank you. Thank you so much, even if it's $10,000 a year. Thank you so much for your generous scholarship opportunity. However, it's still a little bit financially out of reach, and I would love to talk to someone about the options for a reconsideration of my scholarship award, especially in light of these other awards from these other schools, right? And you can be a little specific. Thank you so much for considering my request and the opportunity to speak with someone about this. So that's a great way to start that conversation, but a lot of schools will also have forms. And these forms, I'm going to just pull one up. These forms are pretty specific, right? And so all right, we've got two on my screen right here. So this one it's a sample form from Seton Hall. It's a scholarship appeal form. And if you're listening on the podcast, I'm going to walk you through it. So it said this form must be submitted along with relevant attachments for scholarship reconsideration. So you put your name. And then please select one or more explanations for appeal. Now, I don't have the whole form here, but I just wanted to show you the part about competing offers. So it says provide tuition amount and scholarship offers from up to 2 competing private law schools. Notice they said private. Seton Hall is a private private school. Competing law schools are defined as law schools that provide similar outcomes, bar passage, and employment outcomes. Copies of awards must be provided. Please include a completed version of this worksheet below. And so there's a little table. You can put the school, right? So Seton Hall gave me tuition, scholarship award, other awards. This is my total out-of-pocket cost. School A, school B, school C. Now you'll see the form says school A, B, and C, but they really did say up to 2 competing private law schools. So, I would follow instructions there. Similarly, there is a form for Berkeley, right? List the dollar amount that you are requesting from Berkeley Law per year. There's additional instructions for Berkeley that you can choose one school to kind of do that negotiation with. And so right here it says you may choose only one other offer to submit. If you have multiple offers from other schools, submit the one that you are most likely to attend other than Berkeley Law, i.e., it may not be the largest offer that you have, and it may not be the offer from the quote-unquote highest ranked school, but the one you are most seriously considering. Once you have submitted this form, you may not update it to include a future offer, so you may choose to wait to submit this once you feel like you have a good picture of the awards being offered. So I wanted to kind of show you and speak those kind of different forms because you can get a sense of what schools are looking for and how you can go about filling that form. If a school has a particular form and a way that they want you to do scholarship negotiations or scholarship appeals, as they're sometimes called, follow that. If they don't, then you can, send an email, go different routes. But if they have a way that they want you to do it, definitely follow that. That's always good when you can follow instructions.
I don't think there's anything that is more helpful than the advice to follow instructions. I'm fairly certain that is what I spent about half of my career telling students. You touched a little bit on it when you were going over the forms, and Seton Hall asks for some specific things. Berkeley gets really specific about, we may not want the highest ranked school, we want the one that's most important to you. It may not be the biggest offer. If you're dealing with a school that doesn't necessarily lay it out quite as clearly, what is the information that a student should make sure that they are providing? If we're just sending that email after we've set up the, hey, we'd love to talk to somebody, what should they be prepared to talk through in that meeting?
So I think one of the biggest things is that you want to come with receipts. So you want to have those scholarship award letters ready, perhaps ready to attach. We're all going to law school, so hopefully we all believe in telling the truth. But honestly, there are people out there that lie. And you don't want to be caught saying, oh, this school is giving me $80,000. And they haven't. I mean, there would be really a lot larger conversation that we need to have. But you want to make sure that you have the actual offers. Like if the admissions officer, and they would never do this, but if the admissions officer just kind of said, oh, we think we'll be able to give you a full tuition scholarship, but they haven't actually done so, you cannot use that verbal conjecture as a scholarship negotiation point, right? It's got to be an actual letter. It's got to have the actual dollar amount on it. And it's got to be really offered to you. And that's something that you want to take in consideration. Now, I think that Berkeley really did a good job of touching on things. It's not only about ranks, and I know we're going to talk about what makes a good comparable school, but it's also if there's some other factors. Like, for example, let's say you really, really need to come back to California for family reasons or health reasons or anything like that. And so the schools that you're most considering are schools that fit those personal needs. And maybe you've got higher ranked offers or even more scholarship offers from East Coast schools, but you really would like this California school to reconsider because you really need to move back home. Like, those are some information, some circumstances that would be helpful to include in such a letter, because really what they're trying to do is look at yield. And we've talked a lot about yield before. Yield is the percentage of students that they say yes to that say yes to them. Everyone likes to get a yes. Everyone wants to be accepted. We want acceptances, but the schools want acceptances too. They don't want to be rejected by you. And so they are thinking, as you're going through this scholarship negotiation, like, if we give this person more money, are they really going to come? And this is when I was saying earlier, you're not just negotiating every single scholarship that you can, because one, it's a waste of time. But also, if you know that you are not going to go to a particular school, do not spend time and waste their time negotiating a scholarship offer at that school if you know you're not going to go. When you are engaging in this, it's really from the lens of, I want to come to your school and I will if we can make the money work. That's the mindset that you should have. And so the more that you can also convince them, like, I'm for real, going to come to your school if we can make the money work. I'm not just saying it. I'm not just trying to see, ego boost. How many full rides can I get? There are people that do that. Don't be them. But if you're really trying to say, I really want to come to this school, I'm just trying to make it work, then you want to make sure that you have the information that shows them that you're genuine about that.
Absolutely true. You touched on it a little, and we were going to talk about moving into what makes a school comparable. And you touched a little bit on those sort of personal things that really don't have anything to do with the schools and what they look like. But for example, in the Seton Hall, they specifically lay out what comparable means. For a place that doesn't necessarily give you that direction, what are we looking at as an applicant to decide, well, if I'm going into this school, here's what I need to look at. Here are the schools that are going to be helpful to me as I leverage the offers that I've gotten against this offer that I'd like to be increased.
This is such an important question. What makes a school comparable for scholarship negotiations? It's going to get more difficult as things continue to shake up with US News and World Report, because it used to be fairly simple to just say a comparably ranked school. But that answer is getting significantly more complicated, especially as rankings don't actually at this point fully represent what necessarily is a comparable school. So Seton Hall mentioned a little bit bar passage rate, employment rate. I would also like to throw in there prestige, which I am not saying is very valuable, but I do think when they're talking about yield, it's something that can make a school comparable, and that is something that is really hard to quantify. And the reason why it is because, again, if we're talking about yield and you're looking at a comparable offer, let's say I'm gonna keep picking on California because it's a big state. Now let's say there's a school that is super highly ranked in California, and then there's a school that's kind of at the bottom of the rankings in California, and California actually has all of them. California spans the entire ranking system, which is wild. So if you have a highly ranked California school and a really not as high ranked California school, typically they would also have a big difference in terms of bar passage rates and employment rates, right? But let's say that for some reason in this fictional land, those things were not super different, but the reputation of the higher ranked school, it's not about it being higher ranked, but the types of jobs that students are able to get because of the reputation of that school far outpaces the types of jobs that students are able to get from the lower ranked school because of the lack of perceived reputation. Then when a school is really considering and you're saying, listen, I'm between you and I'm between this school, and I would definitely come if there was like $10,000 more money. It's all about the genuineness of the offer. And they're going to be thinking like, well, you're going to make like $100,000 more when you graduate if you come here. Are we really concerned that if we don't give you this $10,000, you're going to choose the lower ranked school? Maybe they're not concerned because they're like, no, that doesn't make sense. The difference in what we're offering and the difference in your potential employment salary are so great that we're not concerned that you're not going to choose us, so we're not as incentivized to engage in the scholarship appeal process. It is understood that if you are a big fish in a small pond, you're probably going to get a bigger scholarship. And if you're a really small fish in a really big pond, you're probably going to get a smaller scholarship. So just because another school has offered you lots of money, if you're that big fish, then they're looking at you like, well, yeah, I mean, that makes sense, right? And so I think thinking about yourself, if you're a medium-sized fish at both, then that's probably a comparable school. If this school has similar types of employment outcomes, and it's not only about bar passage rate and employment rate, but I also want you looking at what kinds of jobs, similar firm placements or clerkship placements or whatever those things are. If those are similar, then I would say that's a comparable school. A school that the higher ranked school or whatever the school is that you're negotiating with could reasonably say, yeah, she might choose that school actually. That is kind of the better offer, or the difference between what we can provide and what that school can provide isn't worth the difference in debt that they'd have to take out to come here. Those are the things that make a school a comparable school.
That is such a critical piece of it. I know when I was working, we'd occasionally have students come in and they did not have this advice. They obviously had not found us yet. And they would come in and be like, well, this school is giving me this much more money, and it's in a place where the cost of living is significantly higher, employment rate is significantly lower, the median salaries are significantly lower. While, congratulations, it's great that they're giving you this money. Here's maybe why they're giving you more. And here's why we are, again, less incentivized to give you more money, because overall, it may still be cheaper for you to come here,
right?
Without including scholarship.
I think the percentage is important too, right? If school A is giving you $60,000, but their tuition is $120,000. And school B is giving you $40,000, but their tuition is $50,000. School A is not actually giving you more money. Like, they are giving you more money, but your net cost is so much higher with school A. So you really want to look at kind of like how Seton Hall broke down, what is your out-of-pocket cost and how can we make your out-of-pocket costs be comparable? Not necessarily about just the number that the school is giving you be comparable.
Doing that work on the front end, always a good idea. The sort of next question, we've talked about the logistics of this and sort of what happens when you've decided this is a path that I want to go down with the school that I'm really interested in attending. How do I gauge, you touched on it a little bit, but I just want to make sure that everyone is paying attention. How do I gauge as an applicant the likelihood that I'm going to get a scholarship increase if I go through this process?
It's hard to say. It's really hard to say. I wish I could say, well, yes, if you put forth a strong case, listen, if school rank number 3 is giving you so much more money than school ranked number 12, just throwing those numbers out there, then of course school number 12 is going to match school number 3. Like, I would love to be able to tell you that, but that's like, I cannot say that. So much depends on the school. It depends on the institution. It depends on the availability of funds. It depends on what kinds of students they're really trying to attract. It depends on what their yield looks like that year. It depends on many things that honestly have nothing to do with you. You are just but one factor in a lot of factors about whether you actually are successful in your scholarship appeal. So don't take it personally. I think students are like, schools are pots of money. They have pots of money and they just don't want to give me the money. And I want the money, but they said no, but they could give it to me and they said no. Like, I think students just have this mentality of like, it's just the money. It's just sitting there. It's with my name on it and they're just not giving it to me. And it can seem like that because you're like, the endowment, so big. They're this big school. They must have all this money. But there's so much that goes into higher ed policy, that goes into budgets, what things are earmarked for, how endowments are spent. Like, we could have many videos on like the finances of a law school or any higher ed institution. But for simplicity's sake, I will say that it is not quite that cut and dry as a pile of money just sitting there. Some of it will also depend on like how many people actually withdraw and remove their application because they decided to go somewhere else, so they're not just tying up that scholarship money, right? So if you're someone that's been given a scholarship and you know you're not going for that school, please let them know so that money can flow to someone else, so that the school has money for scholarship appeals. But it's really hard to say. All I can say is you do your best, but also have a backup plan in case you don't get the money.
So that leads me right into my very last question is, as an applicant, what do I do when they tell me no?
You say thank you. You say thank you. It's a theme. Thank you. Thank you so much for considering it. Even if they couldn't do it, right? It's like they considered it. They read more things from you. They answered your email. So you say thank you. And then you figure out what you're going to do. And then that kind of goes to some of the things we've been talking about this whole time. Is it worth the extra debt? Like, is what I'm going to get? And sometimes the answer is yes, right? Like, the employment opportunities are so much bigger. This is going to radically shape my career. This is an investment in my career. It's going to cost me an extra $20,000 in debt. And we will have lots of videos about running loans and calculators and all those things. Like, there's so many good online tools about like debt calculators. What is my monthly difference as a payment when I'm paying back my loans really going to be? Will I feel comfortable? Like, maybe if the school has a starting salary of 180 or 210 and the school that is giving you more money has a starting salary of 60,000. Yeah, I mean, that $20,000 extra is probably worth it, to be honest with you, because you can see that it's almost double the median starting salary. You have to make some hard decisions. You have to be serious about your career goals, be serious about where you think you might want to live. Do you want to live in New York? Do you want to live in Idaho? Those are two very different cost of living states. Be serious about what you think you might change your mind, but what do you think you're going to do? What kinds of jobs do you want to get? What doors do you want open? And whether or not the difference in debt is going to drastically change your career. And if you're confused, come talk to us about it. I'd love to talk to you about it. You can set up a strategy call. You could talk to admissions about it. Like, they're friendly people. Sometimes they'll engage in that conversation with you as well. If you are still in college, your pre-law advisor will definitely engage in that conversation with you. But it's something that you really need to have a serious conversation with yourself about.
That is most of the questions that I saw, both as a consultant and as an admissions officer, or the sort of questions that address mistakes that were made by the time students got to me after their application had gone out to them and we were so excited to welcome them and we only were giving them this amount of money and not what they wanted. Thank you so much for taking the time to go through these answers to give our viewers some good, tangible steps to take, places to go, places to look, information to gather as they move into this scholarship negotiation, scholarship reconsideration phase of the admission cycle.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that this is a really important topic. And it's actually one that we will be covering a little bit in depth this summer at our Break into Law conference. And now you might be like, okay, but scholarship negotiation is now. But listen, you might get off the wait list and be having to make some really quick decisions. So if you're thinking about how do I finance my law school education, how do I think through those things, you can come to our free Break into Law conference this summer. We have so many panels for you, but here's that panel on financing your legal education. We also have an entire law school fair. So it's an opportunity for you to actually talk to some of the law schools too, maybe about your situation. But we have some really, really amazing people at the Financing Your Legal Education. We have the South Regional Director of Access Lex, Leandra Ross. We have Abigail Boovy, who was on this podcast as the Assistant Director of Financial Aid at the University of Texas at Austin School of Law. She would love to talk to you about how to negotiate your scholarships. And then, of course, Yolanda Ingram, who's the Director of Access to Law School Education Programs at Penn Cary Law. As you know, we are Barrier Breakers, a 501c3 nonprofit. We're so excited to have Yolanda actually on our board. She has lots of stories, I'm sure, about scholarship negotiations and finance. So if you are wanting to learn more about this topic, we'll have more videos, but there's also a free conference you can register, and we can help you get some of that information that you need. I am so excited, Alice, that we got to have this conversation together. Thank you so much. Thank you to everyone for listening. Of course, as you know, if you have questions, you can always submit them to bit.ly/breakintolawschool. Make sure that you're following us, follow the podcast, like and subscribe, rate and review, share it with a friend. If you have someone in your life that you know is going through this process as well, be a kind person, give them this information. And then if you have more questions that we didn't touch on this topic, we'll do another video. So make sure that you submit those questions to bit.ly/breakintolawschool. Thanks so much, guys. We'll see you soon.